Let's talk to US political analyst Eric Ham and defence analyst Chris Newton, who both join us now. Eric, can I start with you, because this puts a lot of pressure on the White House, of course. You know, this unequivocal support for Israel, and yet President Biden is going to have to apply a lot of pressure, isn't he, to try to make sure this doesn't spiral out of control.
That's right. In fact, we know that already the White House is touting what took place in terms of both the United States and Israel's efforts to actually thwart many of these attacks as a strategic win. And so what we are now seeing is the White House is attempting to at least speak to Benjamin Netanyahu to tamp down the pressure. But we saw a lot of that actually taking place this week, with Secretary of State Antony Blinken speaking to his Chinese counterpart, trying to put pressure on Iran not to retaliate. And we also know the pressure was also on Israel as well. So now over the next 24 to 48 hours, all eyes will be on what will Israel's response be, if any.
Chris, let's bring you in at this point, because we're just hearing there from Mark White that 99% of those missiles and drones were intercepted. We know that Israel has really sophisticated air defence systems in place, but is there a possibility that they could be overwhelmed?
Good morning. Well, I mean, the attacks that happened overnight, you know, seem to indicate that the Israelis, along with help from the US and potentially the UK as well, you know, did manage to cope with the Iranian attack and the various missiles. But there is a possibility that, for example, Iran could send, you know, a load of drones followed by missiles, and that's one way in which you could overwhelm an air defense system. But it seems on this occasion that, you know, this didn't happen. But it also seems that Israel needed, you know, quite some help from the US as well. So we'll see in the future whether you know, if Iran launches more attacks and whether the defense system can cope with it. Of course, there is the possibility of simultaneous attacks as well. So Iran launching attacks in conjunction with, you know, Hezbollah, the Houthis, and the various militias in Iraq and Syria as well. And that could, you know, have the potential to get more drones and missiles through. But so far at the moment, you know, as you say, 99% intercepted, and the Israelis in conjunction with the US and UK has managed to dampen down the effect of the Iranian attack.
All right, Chris, do we know really just quite what capabilities Iran has at its disposal?
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking about, you know, in terms of drones and missiles, we know what Iran's capable of, and in terms of drones, because Iran's been sending drones, the Shahed drones, to Russia. So Iran has, you know, considerable kind of stockpiles of drones. They also have a large stockpile of missiles as well, various types of missiles. We saw cruise and ballistic missiles used in this attack. In terms of Iran's air defense systems, is not as sophisticated as Israel's. It relies on more older systems, but you know, they still have a considerable air defense network, and that will take, you know, some degree of doing in terms of Israelis getting through if Israel choose to launch a direct attack on Iran.
Eric, Biden will be urging Israel to proceed cautiously with their next steps, won't he?
Oh, he most certainly will. In fact, what we also know is that the Biden administration has also been attempting to place an enormous amount of pressure on Israel to not go forward with its military operations in Rafah. And so now one wonders if, in fact, Israel, in fact, will go through with that, because clearly what we're seeing now is this is no longer just Israel attempting to try to eradicate Hamas. They now have to be concerned with Iran, as well as Iran proxies. And I think what we saw take place tonight was more of a warning from Iran, because those missile and drone launches that took place from Iran were certainly telegraphed hours before they actually reached Israel. But what we know is Lebanon is much, much closer, and those rockets could have easily been launched from there, but they were not. And so I think that's perhaps the next phase, if there is going to be one. And I think what we saw tonight was this was Iran attempting to try to save face with this retaliation. And also we know that the Biden administration is also trying to tamp down on Israel's response as well. And so I think what we're looking at here now is perhaps an opportunity for both of these countries to be able to walk away with a quote unquote win.
I mean, the key word there, Eric, is retaliation. I mean, Israel launched that attack, which not on Iranian soil. I think it was on Syrian soil, wasn't it, that killed some key members of the Iranian military hierarchy. They must have expected some sort of response to that.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, we know that at least 28 Israeli embassies had been evacuated in preparation for this attack. The United States had already sent senior military officials over to Israel in preparation for a potential attack as well. And so this was an issue of when, not if, this attack was going to take place. And now we see it. And luckily, there was very minimal damage in Israel because of both the United States and Israel's efforts to actually thwart this attack. But again, as we've already heard, Iran has a very, very sophisticated missile system. And so I think if they actually wanted something to actually work, I think it would have, which is why I think this was more bark than bite.